offers their members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite leagues, including college football and the NFL. They've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest European slots, and their live dealers are waiting for you at the tables. Sign up at BetUS.com and use the promo code WZZN. That's BetUS.com and the promo code WZZN.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
This is Attorney Tommy Sinyard on behalf of Sinyard Law, and again, proud to be a sponsor of All Things Football here on ESPN Radio. My son Bart and I started our own law firm July 1 and are very proud and excited to be bringing you our 50 years of collective national award-winning injury trial law experience. Check us out on the web, sinyardlaw.com.
Sinyard Law, nationally recognized, locally respected.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
And with that, we're back. Welcome into our Monday edition of Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. We are live from Bill Penny Toyota, sitting out here in the service department, as they are open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then on Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is that Bill Penny Toyota Service Department care. Bring your vehicle out here and get service. Get all the needs that it needs here at Bill Penny Toyota. 256-576-4977. It's Monday, so that's the good, the bad, the ugly, and some football grades to hand out from over the weekend. And really, you got to start with the big one down on the Plains. Auburn had a chance to knock off 22nd-ranked Penn State at home on Saturday. Brian Harsin and company have been preaching toughness, blue-collar mentality, been preaching all of this stuff, and there was a lot into this game, more than just wins and more. There was so much bundled into this game. And you look at Auburn, Drew, and they had chances in the red zone. Auburn did. Penn State had a lot of chances in the red zone and took advantage of them. Auburn did not take advantage of their red zone opportunities, and in fact, they get dismantled at home. A loss that's leaving a lot of Auburn fans scratching their heads, wondering if Brian Harsin is indeed the right guy now. A lot of questions there surrounding Auburn. A lot more negative questions coming out of Auburn after that loss. In fact, they even lose a commit shortly after that. We'll get into a lot of that stuff in the week, but not a good showing for Auburn inside Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday.
No, it certainly didn't go as Auburn had hoped. That they had put a lot into the Penn State game. I know they thought they had a point to prove, no question about it. And yes, it was a struggle for Auburn, 41-12. They did not play well on either side of the football. Against Penn State, it was a game at halftime. I mean, it was 14-6. They were squarely in it, had a chance to make some adjustments and come out of the locker room. But as you said, Scott, it just did not work out for them. If they could not get anything going offensively, the quarterback play continued to be spotty. Though I will say I don't think it's all on the quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. I think it's really a systematic problem. And what I mean by that is it's more a Jimmy's and the Joes. They don't have a talented enough offensive line. It was a little mystifying that Tank Bigsby only got 9 carries, and Brian Harsin said due to the flow of the game and them being behind, they didn't get Tank the ball as much. I'm a little surprised that they didn't try to go to him more, and they did in the to start the second half, but they just didn't. They could never get anything going. As far as consistency goes. And for the game, he only had 9 rushes for 39 yards. I mean, he did average a respectable nearly 4.5 yards per carry, but he just did not, get into the flow of the game. And so it was just a little bit surprising to me. that Auburn didn't rely heavily on the run. I thought they would. I thought this would be a situation where they would need to, run the ball 50-plus times against Penn State. And then supplement that, try to make some big plays vertically down the field. But I will say, too, it wasn't just offensively. Defensively is where I was really surprised that Auburn didn't compete better and play better in the game. They gave up 200-plus yards rushing. And we knew coming in Singleton was a special freshman for Penn State. He lived up to it.
245 as a team is what Penn State put on the ground.
Singleton had 2 touchdowns, and it only took 10 carries. He had 10 for 124 and the 2 TDs, and with long of 54 yards. And like you said, 39 for 245, 6.3 yards per rush. And then when they can run the ball that well, Sean Clifford didn't even have to play much in the fourth quarter because, again, he had a great game against Auburn last year, something like 28 out of 32 passing. This time he was 14 and 19 for 178. And, again, Penn State didn't throw a touchdown pass in the game, but they were able to be balanced due to being able to run the ball. It opened the passing game up. And Penn State was a very efficient 17 to 23, 232. So overall, it was just a very, very efficient, I would say, performance for Penn State. And they just dominated on both sides of the ball. And really, this is the way football is. The game was won and lost in the trenches on the offensive and defensive lines. And while Penn State got off to a little bit of a slow start, and it was still a ball game, 14-6 at halftime, it quickly snowballed on Auburn. And when you look at the Auburn stat line, both QBs we saw none of Zach Calzada. Brian Harsin said after the game it was discussed about maybe putting him in the game. They never did. We saw, certainly TJ Finley, who's been their starter for the first 3 games. We saw some of Robbie Ashford, but both had turnovers. Yeah. And that's what you can't have with this team. You have to protect the football, and again, you have to be able to run the ball, and Auburn just could not run it with any consistency, and they don't have great playmakers outside. I think Javarius Johnson, I'll just be honest with you, he's from Hewitt-Trussville. He's probably a 3 at just about every other SEC school, a third receiver. Auburn does not have the Jimmies and Joes and the skill guys around the quarterback. To me right now, this is the fallout from the end of the Gus Malzahn era.
Well, that's what we were talking about on the way in here this morning, and I asked you that question. Is this a what we're seeing on the field now? Is this a product of, one, the inability of Gus Malzahn to recruit, or 2, the inability of Brian Harsin to coach up guys that he has?
Well, this is only year 2, and look, I don't care who the coach is. I don't care if Pat Dye were the coach of this team. I don't care if Urban Meyer were the coach of this team. This Auburn team, without Bo Nix and with the personnel that they have right now, Scott, this is not going to be an Auburn team that's going to be an upper echelon team in the SEC. I didn't think they were going to be the last place team in the SEC West. A lot of people think they will be now that we saw this game against Penn State. There's still a lot of football to be played. I think a lot of what we're going to find out is what happens this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. against Missouri. Missouri is not a good football team, Scott. This Missouri team struggled to beat Abilene Christian 34-17. The week before, they got throttled 41-12. I believe it's the same score, ironically. At Kansas State, they got blown out. That K-State team turned around and lost to Tulane 17-10. And as I told some people, this was not a Scholars Bowl. This was a football game. And Kansas State lost it to Tulane. So Kansas State has obviously got some issues, and yet they throttle Missouri. Missouri might be the worst team in the SEC. I'll just say this. Wow. So, this was brought up to me by our esteemed colleague Steve Moulton Sunday. As we were at this radio station, this could end up being the second coming of Les Miles and Gus Malzahn several years ago. Loser leave town. We all know what happened. Yeah. LSU thought they'd won the game on the last play. They reviewed it. It was overturned, and Gus Malzahn survived. Les was fired the next day. this next game could be lose or leave town.
Brian
with
Harsin,
Missouri
Eli
and Harsin.
Drinkwitz.
I think they're both in trouble.
There's a disturbing trend there with Auburn. Auburn is a -8 turnover margin on the season. That is tied for the second worst mark in college football. Auburn has yet to produce on defense a turnover.
And as you said, they've already turned it over 8 times. And the quarterbacks have turned it over every game. And so that's where it's shaky. You can't turn the football over. You can't fumble the football. You can't throw interceptions. And the defense hasn't been disruptive. I know Derek Mason was criticized, but so far, and again, Brian Harsin, you got to admire him for, doing it my way, as Frank Sinatra would say. But he got both his coordinators from Boise State in place, Eric Kiesau this season, Jeff Smeding, and they both, right now, look like they're in over their head.
All right, Brian Harsin was asked about his job security after the loss on Saturday.
How do you help your team and your coaching staff deal with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, I'm always coaching for this football team, all right, and these players, number one. And I can't control that. I can control, what I do each and every day. What I've always done is coach for this team, these players, these coaches, make sure I'm doing my job, having our team prepared and all that. And, I don't control any of those other things other than what I do and each and every day. So, and that's been no different since I've been a GA to being a head football coach. I've operated the same way and had the same mindset. So we put more expectations on ourselves than anybody else. All right, and that's always been that way. So at the end of the day, I'm disappointed for our football team. And my job is to make sure that we put together a plan and put a football team out there that can go compete and play at a high level. And, that's always the expectations. So the standard needs to be better than what it was, and that's really all we're going to focus on. And, and for our football team, it's the same thing. I tell those guys that. And I think the lessons in all this is, when you're in it, when you're in the arena, which is what we do, all right, we're the ones that are in the arena each and every week, all right? We're the ones that put the work in each and every week, all right? That's what we can control. And, I love being a part of that. I love putting plans together and processes and all those things so we can do that. And, at the end of the day, this is why we get a chance to do what we do, because we're good at it.
Well, we'll talk more about Brian Harsin's future, especially as the week goes on and especially as the show goes on as well. Jeff from the Borough with us on line 1 this morning. Good morning, Jeff.
How you doing, guys?
Morning.
Well, 2 guys should have, Scott Frost should have stayed 4, and Harsin should have stayed in Idaho. As simple as that. I mean, both of them should have stayed right where they're at, and they should have took the jobs they took. They're just coaches trying to chase the money. This probably going to end up Harsin probably be gone. Frost already is. I mean, I can tell you 2 or 3 basketball coaches did the same thing. They're out of a job, not even coaching anymore. If they are, they're coaching small schools. So that's why you don't chase money in life. You stay where you're at. You don't fool around. But that's part of life, I guess, is having money, I reckon. But it's a pretty good weekend of football, I guess. Drew, did you enjoy the 7 touchdown passes through Sunday?
6, yes, I did. I immensely enjoyed it.
Oh, mentally, okay. I didn't know if you physically enjoyed it mentally or not.
Well, he tied. I mean, shoot, he should enjoy it because, Tua tied Bob Greasy and Dan Marino for the most touchdown passes in one game.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I didn't think they'd come back. I saw the score late, and the Browns shouldn't have lost either, but, that's where the NFL is. But no, I just want to see what y'all thought. Are we still soft, Drew?
Who?
Are we still soft?
I don't think he called Kentucky soft. He never called Kentucky soft.
He called them when they played Florida. He said Florida was going to win and blow us out. Then he went on fine ball Friday and doubled down on it.
Oh, I thought you meant Drew. I thought you meant
not Drew, Roman Harper.
You said Drew. Good Lord, Jeff. Wake up and, the coffee, something. I don't know. I was going to say, good Lord, I picked for all summer long, and then the week of the game picked Kentucky to win. And they certainly aren't soft. I mean, Roman. I think he's already said that he regretted that he blew that one, no doubt about it. I mean, this Florida team is not very good. Their quarterback is really struggling from the neck up. They were very lucky to escape against an average at best South Florida team.
Right.
I'll just say this. If I know you're not a big Tennessee fan, even though you live over there in Murfreesboro, you certainly didn't grow up a Vol fan, and that's understandable. You're a UK guy. They're huge rivals. But if Tennessee cannot beat Florida this time, they are truly the boogeyman, because Tennessee they ought to blow Florida out. I mean, this is in Neyland. They're playing at a high level, and this Florida team, they could not stop the run to save their lives against South Florida. They're going to have to do a complete 180 on both sides of the ball just to stay with Tennessee. And I'm just talking about have a chance in the fourth quarter. This should be a Tennessee shellacking.
Yeah, I agree. Robert Harper doubled down on Friday, so I'm just telling y'all. But y'all hang in there, guys. Have a good one. See you.
Well, at this point, Kentucky fans would want Roman Harper to stay saying that they're soft just because it's the mojo. Psychology. Yeah, the mojo that they have going on there.
I mean, I was just I was mystified when he said Drew picked them to lose and said Kentucky was soft.
I was like, okay.
I was like, good Lord, what dimension is he in?
Well, before we break down Alabama's win over the weekend, we do got to feel and we got to send out some heartbreaking feelings to our good friend John Summerall and the Troy Trojans.
Sick.
They had
sick
App
in the
State
press box.
Dead center.
Oh, I mean, I was
dead
sick.
Center for the win.
Sick in the press box at Alabama when I saw what happened. When somebody said, "Oh Lord, Troy just, Troy just choked," and they didn't choke.
No, they did not.
I mean, somebody was, and I was like, "What happened? How did this happen?" And then I watched it, and I'm like, I mean, they played so well. They played so hard. They
in
competed.
A hostile environment.
Yeah,
I mean, a cranked up environment. Yes.
I mean, and the play before the Hail Mary, there was a drop pass would have had Appalachian in field goal range and all that, and they played it right. I mean, they've had everybody back. The QB, Chase Bryce, he did a great job of scrambling and throwing and getting himself free and throwing it deep, but it was 5 yards short. They're trying to knock it down. I just got to give the credit for to the Appalachian State receiver who, followed the flight of the ball perfectly, caught it on the run as it was tipped and ran it into the end zone. I would say this: that would not happen again. It would happen 1 out of 100 times.
Right.
And it just happened perfectly. John Summerall and his team played so well. They deserved to win. Like Barry McKnight, the voice of the Trojans, said, there's just these guys left it all on the field. They're heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for John, but I know he's doing a great job there. He's got them going in the right direction. They went into a hostile environment with game day there, pomp and circumstance, and really represented themselves well. And really, honestly, that was my most disappointing moment of the whole weekend because they were just so close to getting his first signature win at Troy and did not pull it out, losing it 32-26. And, just heart-wrenching
it was
for those young men from Troy and that coaching staff.
All right, Brandon's with us real fast on line one. Good morning, Brandon.
Guys, good morning.
Morning.
Scott, I've seen people on Twitter saying Iowa scored 2 touchdowns and they evacuated the stadium. Why?
They did. I tell you what. Okay, so the Iowa game ended up being, from broadcast standpoint, from the broadcast standpoint, ended up being the second longest broadcast in Iowa football history. It was just under 7 hours.
Good Lord.
Because they had 2 rain and lightning delays. The second one caused them to not come back on the field until about, I want to say, 12:30 in the morning or something like that. It was so late. It was so late. I had so many friends at the game on Saturday. It was so late and miserable. But, Iowa did finally score multiple touchdowns in the game. But they played Nevada.
Shutout. I will say this. Whoever they played, their defense has shut people down.
They've played Nevada this past Saturday. So they still have Michigan and Ohio State on the schedule come to point. So I'm not expecting too much from this team. It's all fool's gold.
I mean, they're 2-1, and yet this is it's really hard to believe they're not 3-0, and they've given up, 3, and then they gave up 10. They've given up 13 points in 3 games, yet they've lost 1.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, they just can't. They're still bad.
I mean, wow. And a quick shout out to Mike Loxley. 34-27 winners over SMU. Maryland's 3-0. Now they got Michigan. Now we're really going to see what they're made of in the Big House next week. But, hey, 3-0 for Wesley Neighbors, Mike Loxley, and the Terps.
All right, Brandon, what else is on your mind, bud?
Well, they're saying that Bobby Petrino's return to Arkansas was on Friends and Family Weekend.
Yeah, that's what was funny. It was on Family Weekend with Bobby Petrino coming back, and if that's just the epitome of family, oh my goodness, I got a chuckle out of every time ESPN said, "Yeah, Bobby Petrino's back on Family Weekend."
And did y'all see where Robert Griffin III? I don't know if he was high as he could be, but that joker went full-on sexual innuendo on just about every call he made on that game the other night.
I didn't watch it.
I did not.
Oh, I've seen the tweets from it, and it's bad. Like, it's over the top. Like, wondering if the FCC is not going to say something about that.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of it. I haven't seen any clips or anything.
All I'll say is that lately ESPN's choices for color analysts have been interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of most of them.
And my son comes running in the living room, Dad, they're fighting. And I didn't get up in time to see what was going on, but I take it there was a massive brawl in the Bucks game.
In the which game?
The Tampa Bay Bucks game.
Oh, I did not see.
There were I believe, Mike Evans got ejected, and there was a fight in that game. It was like a rock fight for most of it. Tampa pulled away and won 20-10. But there was a fight during the game, and they were 2 ejections on each side for both players were ejected. Mike Evans included for Tampa, no doubt about that. But I didn't see much of the game. I just saw the highlights. I was too busy watching Tua Tagovailoa light Baltimore on fire because he finally has a head coach with an offensive pulse and some receivers around him to show so he can showcase his talent.
Okay, well, I was just making sure Giselle didn't come out of the stands and settle it with Tom.
No, that was not it. That's not what happened.
All right, guys, well, Roll Tide and App State, that was fantastic. God, that was. I couldn't find the game. I was like, where the hell is the game? And I kept looking, and they're like, oh, you had to pay for it on that goopy ESPN Plus stuff.
Yeah, it was ESPN Plus, but I just hate it.
I feel bad. All right, Brandon, thanks for the phone call, bud.
Thank you.
All right, when we got to get a break in, when we come back, we'll delve into Alabama's 63-7 win over UL Monroe. Travis Reier on the rebound.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Good morning from the traffic center. We're all clear this morning. No wrecks, no stalls, no traffic signal headaches to pass along. You be careful on that ride in. Cajun Rice is back at Popeyes, and their 11-piece chicken family meal with 2 sides and 5 biscuits is now only $22.99. Popeyes, University and Jordan, 72 and Jeff and North Parkway. Captain Nick in the Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
Your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for their 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers their members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite leagues, including college football and the NFL. They've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest European slots, and their live dealers are waiting for you at the tables. Sign up at BetUS.com and use the promo code WZZN. That's BetUS.com and the promo code WZZN.
Are you in the market for a recreational vehicle? Do you want to get out and see more of this beautiful country? Well, imagine hearing the laughter of your little one.
Great. We got a lot of MVVs and they are looking outstanding. Next.
Yes, what about trades?
Ma'am, you know University Kia always gives up to $5,000 of a KBB trade-in value. Right now, get up to $5,000 over Kelly Blue Book fair market value for any trade at University Kia. New 2022 Kia K5s are just $199 per month. Plus, we want to buy your car. Scan the QR code to see what your car's worth. Only at University Kia.
wants to work with people they can trust, so come on down to Hall's RV and get the deal of a lifetime. We'll treat you right and get you on the road in the camper of your dreams. Visit us on Highway 431 in Albertville. Hall's RVs, where we sell fun. Or see us on the web at www.hallsrvsales.com.
Two Maids and a Mop. That's all you need to know to clean house. Two Maids and a Mop is an award-winning company, bonded and insured. Hire them for yourself, or they have gift cards if you want to make someone else's day. Find out more online at twomaidshuntsville.com. A maid service worth talking about. Two Maids and a Mop take care of everything. They supply all the cleaning equipment needed. Call 256-883-6243. The only finger you'll need to lift is the one to call them.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121.
Hi, everybody. Eli Gold here. Right now, indoor air quality occupies top-of-mind awareness for families and business owners. Rick Smith and the trusted professionals at Environmental Comfort Systems can take care of your indoor air quality concerns with their state-of-the-art indoor air quality solutions. Environmental Comfort's indoor air quality systems remove 99.9% of airborne contaminants so you and your family can breathe clean, fresh air. If anyone in your family suffers from allergies, or if you just want the security of knowing the air you breathe inside your home is free from viruses, bacteria, pet dander, dust, and odors, Environmental Comfort Systems are the professionals to call. Environmental Comfort also carries state-of-the-art, high-efficiency comfort systems that increase home comfort, keep humidity in check, and help you save money on your energy bills. Give my friend Rick a call or visit them online at envcomfort.com and breathe cleaner air today. Environmental Comfort Systems, Alabama license number 92314.
Not looking or feeling your best? No energy for the things you like to do? Ready to look and feel younger? Make your appointment at Advanced Life Clinic, one of the region's foremost destinations for patients interested in looking and feeling their best. Specializing in advanced laser treatments and weight loss, male and female rejuvenation to offset the effects of aging, and more. See how Advanced Life Clinic can help you enjoy your life again. Call 256-882-6555 or log on advancedlifeclinic.com.
This is Eli Gold, voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now more of Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond on your home for Crimson Tide Sports 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Roll Tide.
All right, welcome back. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond hanging out. Bill Penny Toyota is our place to be on a Monday. And Alabama, a 63-7 winner over UL Monroe over the weekend, tied up 28-0 after the first, Drew. And we knew going in, Terry Bowden and company, they were going to be overmatched in this one. Alabama came out, did what they had to do in this ball game, and now you wonder how much better did they get in this game? How much did they work on some things that kind of ailed them a little bit during that Texas win? SEC game this coming weekend against Vanderbilt. How much check marks did the Tide put in those boxes on Saturday?
Well, they did some different things. They did. They came out in the two tight end set. Kendall Randolph was back in his 85 jersey. He started with Cam Latu. The ball game, of course, it was an illegal formation penalty. That is not a great start, but they did work on a lot of two tight ends. We saw Kendall playing there, and then the most interesting part was we saw Tyler Booker get a lot of reps at both guard slots, and we're going to talk about that and more with our next guest. He is the senior analyst since 2003 for BamaOnline.com, also part of the Talkin' Tide podcast with Chase Goodbread and SEC second helping, with our good friend Brent Beard, and that is Travis Ryer, also a part of the daily Bama Online podcast. Travis, it's great to speak with you on this Monday. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing well. I thought the biggest storyline coming out of this game, because Travis, we knew Alabama was going to win this football game, but was Tyler Booker asserting himself and competing for one of these guard slots. Nick Saban was adamant about it after the game. It looks like, whether it be left or right, I would lean to left right now, but that Tyler Booker's pushing hard.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. The true freshman has been really impressive since joining the program in January, and you even saw it back in spring drills when he was working with the second group. But, he's shown you in the past he can work at tackle, but I think ideally he will be an interior lineman for the future, and right now has the look of certainly a multi-year starter type at one of those spots.
Well, Travis, your thoughts on the game on Saturday? Obviously Alabama came in overmatched against Monroe, but you look at the finer things in the game. How did Alabama look from the finer things?
Yeah, I think anytime you can start a game with scores in all three phases of the game, that's probably pretty ideal. And, they were able to do that. The punt return unit was fantastic with, 260-plus return yards in the punt return game. You had the block punt there by Ja'Cory Brooks and the touchdown return by Malachi Moore. So it was good for Alabama to see a return of the non-offensive touchdowns. And defensively, you get your first takeaway in 3 games with Will Anderson's interception and his subsequent return for a score. So you guys talked about checking boxes. I thought they were able to do that. They weren't perfect. They still had a stretch there in the first half where offensively it wasn't exactly textbook, and you're not used to seeing multi-interception performances from Bryce Young. He had one of just his 2 so far during his Alabama career on Saturday. Tried to get deep to Isaiah Bond, couldn't quite get it there. He's intercepted. And then, Ja'Cory Brooks probably could have went with more of a two-hand approach off the RPO action on the slant that ended up being picked as well. So they were not, again, they didn't play perfect football offensively, but after the half, the run game I thought was really impressive, and credit the depth of the offensive line as well, because there really wasn't a drop-off as they moved down the depth chart both at running back and up front. So, to get those 5 scholarship running backs, a good bit of experience is important, because we saw how injuries can impact things a year ago. And Jamarian Miller, the true freshman, continues to do some good things when given the opportunity. And a morale-boosting type game, too. You want to play as many people as you possibly can, not just in terms of, their respective development for the future, but just how much that helps you today on Monday of Vanderbilt week when, some guys that are going to be in those scout team roles so reassume those roles, but good to be able to allow them the opportunity to get on the field on game day, too.
Yeah, it really was, and I thought Travis coming out in 2 tight ends, that sent a message that they were going to be trying to work on the running game against ULM.
They were. I like that they came out with some tempo, too.
Yeah, good point.
I think that they need some energy from time to time. They look a little bit lethargic offensively, and so I like that they sort of forced that, or at least tried to manufacture some energy early, and also get those outside guys involved. Good to see Ja'Cory Brooks early in the game make a play. Trayshawn Holden. These are guys that you don't typically associate with yards after catch, but Holden was able to do that on his touchdown catch there early, and Ja'Cory kind of got that going with his 29-yard reception. So, they need more explosive plays, as we know, out of their outside guys, and to get that going early. You still want to see it from Jermaine Burton. That's still a bit of a mystery now. Jermaine had an opportunity on a deep ball, and Bryce wasn't able to hit him there late in the first quarter. So that's still a work in progress. And we talk so much about the wide receivers, but it doesn't always go back to those guys. And I thought the offensive line, again, considering the opponent, but did a better job also in pass protection. The touchdown pass to Amari Nyblack there late in the first half was a prime example of that. Bryce going against a 4-man rush had all day to eventually get around to Amari after 3 nice hookups with Cameron Latou to kind of spur that 2-minute drive. And I'm not going to say it's the turning point for the Alabama offense, that sequence there, but I think at that point in the game Saturday, again with a little bit of the gaps that we've seen in offensive production seeping back in, for them to be able to get that opportunity with 2 minutes and then fulfill it with a touchdown, I thought that was important.
Well, Travis, I mean, really, it's all about getting better for SEC play. Saturday, Alabama does kick off SEC play with Vanderbilt coming to town. Vanderbilt gets a win over the weekend, but this is an Alabama team. Are they ready for this SEC gauntlet?
I think they're ready for Vanderbilt, but it is an important game because it is another opportunity to continue to ramp up for a month of October that continues to look more and more daunting with each passing week. Now, Arkansas obviously had some unexpected struggles with Bobby Petrino and Missouri State on Saturday, but you're still anticipating that trip to Fayetteville on October 1st being difficult. Then obviously A&M perhaps is going to turn a corner here with Max Johnson in there at quarterback. We'll see about that. Got to let kind of Arkansas and Texas A&M play it off, I guess, this weekend before you get to Alabama, Arkansas, and Alabama A&M. It almost has the feel of a round-robin situation with those teams coming up. But, Tennessee obviously very impressive at this point in mid-October. And so it is certainly an October gauntlet that this team needs to continue to try to prepare itself for. And I think Vanderbilt offers that opportunity again coming up this week. It's good to see the Commodores, a couple of back-to-back road wins. You don't say that often about Vanderbilt. Yes, it was Hawaii and Northern Illinois, but we've seen Vanderbilt in the past struggle in those situations. So a good start for the Commodores. Interesting quarterback situation, it looks like, for Vandy right now. So we'll see what Alabama gets from that perspective this week.
Yeah, and that's a good segue there because Vanderbilt wins the game 38-28. A.J. Swan, the freshman from White, Georgia. We saw Mike Wright early, but Swan gets in there, throws 4 touchdown passes, Travis, and really runs the offense well. It's going to be interesting to see going forward what direction Vanderbilt goes.
Yeah, I believe it was the weight game. Mike Wright took just a big hit in that game. And, but Swan's been impressive. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be an interesting week from that perspective. But, Alabama certainly still has introspection and areas itself that it needs on first and foremost. And I thought corner was a positive. Speaking of opposing quarterback play, Perry Arnold with his second start of the season, opposite Kool-Aid. Those guys were solid. We did see Eli Ricks. We did see Kyrie Jackson. So I wouldn't put that thing totally to bed just yet. But how they continue to develop there on the outside perimeter of that defense is certainly going to be important. And I guess that's pretty much about this team in general right now. The wide receiver. And then also, the cornerback positions. And so, those are some areas where you're going to continue to keep an eye on things, even with Vanderbilt in town.
Yeah. Do you feel the offensive line kind of gelling together a little bit? You mentioned that, Vanderbilt coming in and give them a chance to maybe work on some things a little bit more, gear up towards that season. Is that offensive line kind of the continuity coming together?
It looks like it. I thought we talked about the run game for Alabama. It's been a little bit feast and famine through the first couple of games with explosive plays and then empty carries in between it. But, I thought Saturday was a positive. Again, understanding ULM is not LSU or Texas A&M or some of these other defenses Alabama's going to see as they move through the season. But they did fill in some of those gaps in the run game. I think they had 12 runs of 10 yards or more from their 5 scholarship running backs. So, that was a positive. And, again, interesting to see still some things being sorted out in that offensive line with an emphasis more on guard, which you wouldn't have anticipated going into the season because Alabama returned so much experience there on the interior. But as we talked about, Tyler Booker may be a guy as a true freshman that proves more and more difficult to keep out of that mix. So as they solidify things up front, I think the run game is going to be fine. For me, anyway, I think the ceiling for this offense and maybe this team in general is going to rest more with, can they get improved production from the guys on the outside?
Yeah, exactly. And in the what are your thoughts on the receiver core, Travis? Trayshawn Holden had a moment. So did certainly Ja'Cory Brooks, but still not a lot of touches for those receivers. You already mentioned Jermaine Burton, and he had a sort of a lack of touches in this game as well. But you still saw some positive things. Kendrick Law blocking very well on the perimeter. Nick Saban talking about that. So sometimes it's not just catching the football and making big plays, but it's also doing things without the football.
Yeah, and that's like some of the things we talked about that you didn't see enough of from Alabama the first couple of games, but that was a real positive from Law. On Jahmyr Gibbs' 37-yard touchdown catch, he was tremendous out there, and that will get him on the field. I know people, we associate it with yards per catch and receptions and touchdown catches and things like that, but that type of stuff, Law as a young receiver, that helped him put himself in a position where he gets targets in the passing game. He gets reps at the wide receiver position. So, yeah, they need more of that. Jahmyr is certainly still going to be a big part of what they do from the football, as he should be, because the matchups are certainly favorable when you have him in the lineup and you're able to get him on linebackers and maybe guys that aren't used to dealing with that sort of dynamic playmaking ability in space. So he's going to be an integral part of all that. Scrimmage yards are always going to be the thing to keep an eye on with him, more so than just rushing yards, because, again, you saw it on Saturday between his ability as a runner, a receiver, and then also he had the big kickoff return in the game. He's gonna impact things from a multitude of perspectives.
Yeah, he is. And then I thought two young defenders that really showed well. Jaheim Otis getting his first start, Travis, and then Deontay Lawson rotating with Jalen Moody and Henry To'oTo'o. I didn't think there was much drop-off there.
No, I think it's pretty clear they see Jaheim as a starter, and that was the case on Saturday. Same for Deontay, and I think also there's maybe a little bit of a look ahead to the future there. First and foremost, he's ready now to play. They're not just going to put him out there if he's not, but there's an additional benefit to knowing that Henry To'oTo'o, Jalen Moody moving on after this season, and I think Deontay's a guy that they're going to have some really nice versatility with. If they feel like they need him to run the show next year from the Mike position and be the every down guy in the middle of the field, I think he's going to be able to do that. If they feel like they want to play him at will and they've got somebody else that can play that Mike position, that's great too. But as it sits right now, I don't think it's all that difficult to envision him as the every down Mike in 2023.
Yeah, it's not. And then Travis, finally, the kicking game, the big star, though. You already mentioned school record, 262 punt return yards. Ja'Cory Brooks, always been a good special teams player. He gets the blocked punt. I thought it was probably as good a special teams performance as we've seen out of Alabama in a while. And that third phase is going to be key with what's coming up in October.
Yeah, it is, because offensively they're still good enough, but they're not last year. In other words, they can certainly use the contributions of the kicking game, either in terms of scoring in the kicking game or at least setting that offense up a little bit better via the return game or blocks or kickoff returns, things like that. And they got all of that on Saturday. I thought they were really good at Texas kicking the football, especially Will Reichert, obviously. But the return game was otherworldly. I still don't understand why Terry Bowden kept punting the football to Alabama in a way in which they could have even a chance at a return. But, to get multiple guys that produced the way they did in that area and, to play penalty-free, that's not easy. When you're returning that many punts, typically there's going to be a block in the back or something, right? And, after all the penalties at Texas, it was certainly better on Saturday in that regard, with an emphasis on defense and also I would say special teams. But they did a pretty good job in coverage too. I thought Malachi Moore had a really nice tackle on the one kickoff return by ULM that looked like it had a chance. Now I think ULM was called for a hold on it, so it was coming back, but that was still good to see. And Robbie Oots had a nice block out in front of Jameer on that long kickoff return. So they probably today, when they announce their special teams players of the week, they could have quite a few, I think, that qualify.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And real quickly, your thoughts on the matchup with Vandy. Vandy looks improved in year 2 under Clark Lee. You talked about Mike Wright getting a little dinged up, A.J. Swan playing well. Vandy looks improved defensively, but still a chance for Alabama to potentially play a lot of guys and develop some depth.
Yeah, it could be. And I do think Vandy has obviously improved over the last year or two. I mean, a couple of years ago, it really was pretty much rock bottom by the end of that season. And that's understanding COVID and everything else took a toll on certainly programs like Vandy more than, say, an Alabama. But no, I think they're trending in a good direction. You're right. Defensively, they have some pieces with an emphasis more for me at the linebacker level and maybe more at defensive end. So obviously not enough roster-wise to you would think do the unthinkable in Tuscaloosa. But the start of SEC play is what it is, and with Alabama needing these opportunities regardless to work its way into more of a championship caliber team. I think the positive for Nick right now is I would think he has the full attention of his team right now going into SEC play, because it's on tape. They haven't been maybe even to the level that they're used to being at, and so they still have some things to clean up and improve on again before October and that really tough stretch shows up.
No question. Well, we'll certainly be following the coverage on BamaOnline.com. Could be some recruiting news this week as well coming out, with a couple of guys like Jordan Renaud and Jalen Hill announcing with Alabama thoughts of being their top 2 of both prospects and from the state of Texas. But Travis, always appreciate the time and let people know how to connect with you.
Just go to BamaOnline.com or Alabama.247sports.com. Either way will get you done.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's get that break in. When we come back, wrap up hour 1 of Talkin' Ball.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Got a record 72 in Holiday Drive. Sounds like it's on holiday, but it may be slowing traffic down on 72 just a bit. Everything else looks good this morning. I don't see any other snags. You be careful. You're definitely going to be in a heavy traffic load. Officers, construction workers, and first responders put their lives on the line every time they step on the roadway. Why not make it safer for them? Move over. It's the law. Captain Nick in the 72 and Jeff Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
The 2 words we live by. The coach we follow. All right, blow the horn. Let's go. The famous call we love to hear. Touchdown, Alabama! It's good to be a Bama fan. Join us Saturday as the Crimson Tide kick off conference play against Vanderbilt. Our coverage begins at 3:30 on your home for Alabama football.
Listen to Alabama football all season long on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
This is Wes Neighbors with Philip with Eagle Insulation, and we have an announcement to make.
Yes, Wes, we are now Eagle Masonry and Insulation. We're still a place to call for your insulation needs, but now we offer masonry services.
What kind of masonry projects can you handle?
Wes, no job is too big, no job is too small. We can do renovations, new construction, outdoor fireplaces, fire pits, brick landscape borders.
Well, when you came out to my house, you did both the insulation and masonry at the same time. You guys did rock for me, you did brick for me, and you insulated my house. That's usually done at the same time that you're building a house.
Absolutely. It really capitalizes on 2 services you need at the same time, and you can get one company to handle both of those.
Philip with Eagle Insulation will come out, do your installation. He'll do your masonry. They do a great job. They guarantee your work. Check out more online at insulatedwitheagle.com and schedule your free examination today. 256-755-1556.
Thanks, Wes.
Tom Abraham here from my friend Brian Hamaker and his team at North Alabama Mortgage. Look, buying a home is the biggest purchase you will make in your life, and it can be a bit intimidating, so you want people that can help walk you through the mortgage process and get you the best deal possible. That's what North Alabama Mortgage does, and they do it in Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida, from first-time purchases to refis, conventional, VA, FHA, and USDA loans. They have the solution at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com to learn more. That's NorthAlabamaMortgage.com.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
This is Attorney Tommy Sinyard on behalf of Sinyard Law, and again proud to be a sponsor of All Things Football here on ESPN Radio. My son Bart and I started our own law firm July 1 and are very proud and excited to be bringing you our 50 years of collective national award-winning injury trial law experience. Check us out on the web, sinyardlaw.com.
Sinyard Law, nationally recognized, locally respected.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Listen to the North Alabama High School Scoreboard Show, presented by Woody Anderson Ford, each Friday night on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
All right, welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Let's go straight out to the phone lines. Bama Bino with us on line one this morning. Good morning, Bama Bino.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing this morning?
Morning, good.
Oh, I just enjoy listening to y'all from. I had a couple of things I was going to say on Alabama and Auburn both. I think we're developing, like the guy was saying, it's still a work in progress. I'd like to see them when they're tackling. The high school has drills, and for years we used to, when you're meeting a guy, break down and make him commit left to right instead of plays. I think we left 60 yards on the field of a loss of behind the line of scrimmage on some things. And if we just wrapped up and just fundamental things, and the defensive backs need to play the ball a little more. Look when the man looks. But on the Auburn situation, with them firing AD first, it kind of makes me think that they've talked to somebody that they know can turn the program around. With them firing him, Alan Green that early, before the coach, which I guess the AD fires him anyway. It's not the board don't fire the coach, but I think they might have talked to Hugh Freeze. Have you heard any talk about that?
Well, Bambino, I've heard Hugh Freeze's name come up. I've heard, Kevin Steele, because of what happened nearly 2 years ago. He's the defensive coordinator in Miami. Of course, you're going to hear his name. You hear Deion Sanders' name. There's going to be a lot of guys bandied about for the opening at Auburn.
Let's keep this in mind, though. Right now, currently, Brian Harsin still has a job.
It's basically a loser leave town game coming up on Saturday in Jordan here at 11 a.m. with Elijah Drinkwitz and Brian Harsin. They're both in trouble.
Right.
Well, that's what I know that, but y'all mentioned something about the trenches. That's where the game was lost.
Yes, agreed.
The trenches. Let me say something about that. I'm not an expert on line. I do backs mainly. I know backs more than anything. But if you look at the size of the lineman, I'm sure they have a weight program there. But if you look at the size of the lineman, the arm size, the thigh size, the weight, they're getting shoved off the ball. I don't think they look like a big standout high school lineman, except for maybe one or two of them on the offensive line. They just can't stay there and anchor down.
Yeah, that's I think a lot of the problem.
The strength is there.
Yeah, I think that's what's frustrating the most is because Brian Harsin has come in and preached a blue-collar toughness mentality, and they were preaching that all summer, that this team was going to be more physical, they were going to be tougher, and this was the game for them to show it, and they came up way short.
Yeah, that work is done off the field and off practice. That's done on your own. You have to work out. And the receivers, I've noticed, dating back several years, they don't meet the ball. You have to put it right on the numbers for them to even come in there. And that goes back to even Malzahn. They're not meeting the ball. I mean, it's just like a quarterback, it don't matter who the quarterback is, he sometimes has to throw it where there's a spot. There's not always going to be where he can throw it right there. And they're just not meeting the ball. And you know, we had a drop or two, I thought, at Alabama Saturday that should have been called. But that's just youth and inexperience. But their things are just going back several years. I've just noticed the receivers don't have the quarterbacks out any at all, hardly.
No, you're right. And the quarterback play is suspect at best right now for Auburn.
I don't think it hurt to try Calzada a little bit. My Lord, he won against Alabama last year.
Yeah, Drew, at this point, Drew, what are you losing by putting Zach Calzada in a football game?
I don't think you're losing anything. You know what I'm saying? I know he's probably still got PTSD from playing for a moron like Dirtneck, but I mean, and again, congratulations to him. They won the NIL Bowl 17-9. Even though he had to bench 4 guys, probably because the checks didn't clear.
And had two kicked out of the game in the first half because of targeting.
Yeah, such discipline in the program. Had Denver, Harris that did I told Steve Moulton, I said, Steve, he's giving you a run, man. He Tokyo drifts better than you do, except he's doing it in a parking garage. So, I mean, again, it's just one of those things where A&M won the game. It was an ugly game. Max Johnson was better than, Haynes King, not much better. But, again, it was a step forward for A&M to get a win. And I picked it because I just sort of figured Cristobal's team would fall short. Mario's not a great game coach, great recruiter, but still a ways to go for Miami. Thanks for the phone call, Dan Mabino.
All right, that's going to wrap up Hour 1 of Talking Ball. Hour 2 going to get underway. We're going to continue to break down things that happened over the weekend. The top 25 is out. We'll let you know where it's at. And Josh Pate will let us know what it was like down on the plains coming up next.
Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com.
At Bryant Bank, we believe your goals are worth chasing, and every step along the way is worth celebrating. From your hopes for the future to the challenges that keep you up at night, we're here for you. Bryant Bankers put care into action to help you live legendary by stepping up when you need us most and doing what's right even when no one is watching. Come experience a local bank whose people greet you by name and treat you like family. Bryant Bank, member FDIC.
WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Got a wreck at 72 and Holiday Drive. Sounds like it's on Holiday, but it may be slowing traffic down on 72 just a bit. Everything else looks good this morning. I don't see any other snags. You be careful. You're definitely going to be in a heavy traffic load. Officers, construction workers, and first responders put their lives on the line every time they step on the roadway. Why not make it safer for them? Move over. It's the law. Captain Nick in the 72 and Jeff Popeye Skywatch Traffic Center.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. For this Monday, expect mostly sunshine. High temperature is going to be topping out in the lower 90s for the afternoon. You can expect to stay dry, too. Heading into your Monday night, a partly cloudy sky expected. Low temperature is going to be falling into the mid and upper 60s for the overnight. I'm meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time, or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
And just like that, hour two of Talking Ball is underway. Some college football headlines that we haven't touched on yet. Herm Edwards out at Arizona State after a stunning loss to Eastern Michigan on Saturday. Now, don't forget, Arizona State amid a million miles of NCAA investigation. So whoever takes that job will have their new hands full. The new AP poll is out. Georgia remains number one. Really, every team inside the top 9, they won by at least 28 points. So the rankings there, they stayed pretty much the same. Only changes, Kentucky, Oklahoma State, they swapped places. Arkansas, despite struggling with Bobby Petrino and Missouri State, they stay at number 10. We can go over the rest of it in just a little bit, but your top 5, in case you forgot: Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson. Those are your top 5. Kentucky is, by the way, number 8 now in the AP poll. Tennessee, number 11 in the poll. So Tennessee and Florida this weekend should be good. What was not good was the game itself, the environment. Auburn got everything they wanted from Jordan-Hare Stadium. They got everything that they wanted. It was electric. The crowd was electric. The mood was electric. Everything was electric, except the play.
Yeah, Auburn fell short of their expectations for sure. They did not play that well against Penn State. I had picked Penn State 24-20, but I thought Auburn would make a better acquitting of themselves. But they struggled throughout this game, especially in the second half. Our next guest was there live in Auburn, and the week before he was in Austin, Texas for Alabama, Texas. He goes to some of the biggest games of the year in college football. He has one of the best shows on YouTube that you can see live on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. And he's one of the best voices there is in college football for 24/7 Sports and CBS, and that is Josh Pate, and he's with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Josh, welcome back to Huntsville with Drew and Scott. How are you?
It was not just a bad day. Okay, we've all had bad days.
Yeah.
It was if you've ever gotten home, the picture, if you guys are driving around in Huntsville right now, and you go through a long, hard day at the office, and it's about 5:15, you get home, you want to get to the recliner. And you pull in, you open the car door, it smells terrible outside, and you realize someone's septic tank has ruptured. And there's no way around that smell. That was Saturday. It was a gross day on the plane. That's the best way I can describe it. I invested an afternoon of my life into that, and that's what we got.
You even got a nice Verbo house, too. By the way, great commercial for Verbo, by the way. Loved it.
Now let's just pause and appreciate how incredible the odds were against me coming on this show and you ever saying that sentence to me. We live in an incredible world, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we certainly do. And Josh, as you saw this game unfold, first, what are your impressions of Penn State? I was impressed with them and their comeback win over Purdue, and then what they did to Ohio. I still thought Auburn would push them. How good is Penn State? And then vice versa. To me, this just seems like Auburn doesn't have enough of the Jimmies and the Joes.
So you're right about that. So let me address Penn State first. Penn State is a very good team, and they're an ascending team. They have a very nice mix of young players on that team now that if you follow recruiting, you already knew about. But I think there's a big subset of college football fans out there who recruiting is just white noise to. They don't care about the players till they see them on Saturday, which is okay. I know you got a life to live. You don't have time to follow 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, but some of us do. And so for some of us, the name Nick Singleton was not a name that just flashed on our screen on Saturday. We knew about him because he was the top running back coming out of high school. And also, I remember talking to our guys when we were doing our signing day show, and they classified him as the guy with the lowest bust potential out of all the 5-stars. It was a can't miss unless he got hurt or unless he was a character concern, and he's a great kid, so there's not that. There was just no way he was going to miss, and he didn't. So he's a very good player. They, for those of you unfamiliar, did not have a 100-yard rusher in a game all of last year. You had to go all the way back to 20 to find it. So now he's done it a couple of times, and all of a sudden what you're seeing because of that is the rest of the pieces on the team just fall into place. They've had a really good defense there. It hadn't mattered because they couldn't score. They've had good enough quarterback play in Sean Clifford. He got hurt last year, so that didn't matter either. But when they have all that, they went out and got a kid named Mitchell Tinsley from Western Kentucky. You heard his name a couple of times Saturday, to bring in to replace John Dodson with. Parker Washington's still there. My point there is they're better than people think they are. I started them in the top 10 in my own rankings in the preseason. The AP didn't even have them rated, which I thought was insane. They're just, people are so hot and cold on them, and what you should have been was lukewarm the whole time with the ability to heat up. And so they are heating up now. It doesn't matter that they beat a bad team because of the margin they got on. It's the same deal with Oklahoma. It doesn't matter that Nebraska's bad. They did, Georgia same way with South Carolina, those teams did what good to great teams are supposed to do when they play bad teams. They didn't just eke by them, they obliterated them. And that's the hallmark of a good team. That place was empty, guys. Early fourth quarter, Jordan-Hare Stadium had emptied out. And that's not a scene I ever thought I'd see Saturday.
Is this a case of, and we were talking about this in the first hour, is this a case of what Brian Harsin was left because of Gus Malzahn, or Brian Harsin's inability to coach guys up that he has?
Well, here's why it doesn't matter, even if the first part is true. Because you just saw what Lincoln Riley did. You just saw what Sam Pittman did in the span of one season. And what I mean by that is not just in recruiting, but through the portal, those guys made moves. You're not going to get to use that excuse anymore. Okay, so it may very well be that Gus Malzahn didn't leave the most loaded roster, but he did not leave a poverty roster behind either, which leads to another of the glaring problems I saw in Auburn Saturday. If you stood on the field down there, it was so glaring, the mismatch physically. Bigger, faster, stronger. All the stuff you're used to saying about the SEC teams in those out-of-conference games, you said about Penn State. They were so much more physically impressive. Getting off the bus, more physically impressive. And what it screamed was talent disparity, right? But then you go and you look at the overall rosters, and you go back to high school recruiting, and you go back and look at all the critical factors in the blue chip ratio that we normally use at 24/7, and what those numbers would lead you to believe is Auburn and Penn State's rosters are comparable. The problem is it looks like the development ended for the Auburn players once they got on campus, and the development had just begun for the Penn State players. So I'm telling you, it was a night and day difference I wasn't really expecting, and I watch these teams every week, so that's another problem, and you're not going to get to use the excuse of this is what I inherited, especially when you're 2 years in, doubly especially when you don't have quarterback play. It's not that they didn't try and address it with Calzada, that just hasn't worked out, and now you're left with what you're left with, and it's basically it's a fishing boat without a motor on it.
Well, we've already said this earlier in the show, and I'll ask you. You have your finger on the pulse of the SEC. This feels like another LSU Auburn when the loser left town. That was Les Miles several years ago. Is it going to be the same thing with Missouri and Auburn at 11 a.m. in Jordan-Hare Stadium Saturday?
I don't have as good a feel about the Missouri side. I know what people are saying about that, but that's all I know. I hear what you guys hear about that. Around Auburn, I can tell you two things. One is I have no idea on a timetable, but two, yeah, it is viewed as an inevitability that Saturday probably sealed the deal. And I think I've talked to you guys before about this. Remember in the spring and summer when Brian Parson did a lot of public speaking, a lot of public engagement, which I thought was a brilliant move on his part. And what I thought it did was it built him up a lot of equity and what I called basically kind of seesaw equity. And what I meant by that was if he gets to this season and they do go 7-6, but all the losses are one possession losses, he probably has bought himself enough goodwill to have enough critical support to keep his job. What was never going to matter is that if he loses 41-12 to Penn State in week 3 and it just goes off the rails. No amount of critical equity can be built up to save your job if that happens. And I think they've reached a point of no return down there. I think that the people I've spoken to, even before that game and then after that game, all the tunes changed. So what I don't know is, are they in a Nebraska situation where they're just ready to do things now? Do they have a certain date? Do they want to get a little bit later on? Do they think they need to have the coach gone to operate a search? That hasn't always been the answer yes at Auburn. So I don't know. I don't know if I would quite call it a loser leaves town. I will say you could look back at that game and look at the results and say, we didn't realize it at the time, but yeah, that probably sealed someone's fate.
Well, and now, Josh, we know that you also were in Austin for Alabama's escape against the Longhorns. It was a great environment. It was intense. It was a great football game, a much closer game than I anticipated, than a lot of people did. What was your impressions of Alabama against Texas, and what have you seen out of them so far? What impression has Alabama made on you, and what did you think of Sark's program in year 2 at Texas?
Well, I got out there a day early, specifically to see Sark's program, and they gave me a lot of access, which I really appreciated, and so I hung out in the football facility on Friday, for example, saw everything that there was to see there, talked to some coaches, and I thought that it was really interesting as I was walking down the hallway. Every other coach had already left at this point. Players had left. They had gone to the team hotel. There was one guy in there that was still grinding away on his desk. He's working with his door open, lights off, kind of like I do. So some people would call that psychopath behavior. I just think it equals focus. And it was Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson was the only guy still in the facility. And I had a couple of folks in the football ops side of things say, yeah, he's the Alabama guy. The Alabama game is his game. We all kind of know that around here. And I think you saw Gary Patterson's blueprint or fingerprint, rather, on that game. The other thing is everyone talked about Bill O'Brien. I'm not absolving Bill O'Brien of anything. Everyone can feel free to criticize him as much as you want. I'm just going to say in that one game, it was really obvious they thought something that was incorrect. They thought they could run the ball on Texas. And aside from the McClellan run, they could not run the ball on Texas. And if you want to know why they bled so much clock, it was because it was complementary to that game plan The problem was the game plan did not unfold as they thought it would. So you get a little bit later in the game, and you're still sticking with running that play clock down and waiting to snap it, and it takes the defense is set and they're ready for you. You're not using tempo. You're not utilizing your skill set offensively. Well, it's because they didn't think they needed to. Nick Saban wanted that to be a 2-hour, 40-minute game. That's what he wanted. He wanted to get out of there and thought that they could do that simple, and they couldn't. So they wanted to do to them what Ole Miss did to Georgia Tech. That's what they wanted to do, run the ball about 50 times. And so it got in the fourth quarter. It's a dogfight. You survive it. You buy yourself time. When you win those games, just like A&M just did, you buy yourself time to hopefully make a really talented team the most of what it can be. And we see it every year, guys. We see teams in November that are way better than the September version we saw. And you look back and you say, wow, there were some close games they survived. What if they would have lost those games? Well, it doesn't matter because they won them, and all of a sudden they gave themselves time to become what they eventually become. And I think that's what Alabama's going to be. Now, whether that's good enough to beat Georgia, I don't know. They'll be competitive with them. I don't know if they'll be good enough to beat them, but they don't have to play them this week is the point. They have to get better this week, and then they'll end up playing them probably down the road. But I just thought they had a game plan, and it did not pan out, and they found a way to win, playing their B- or C+ game. And it's credit to Alabama for finding a way, but it's big credit to Texas, to me, every bit as much for surviving UTSA with a backup quarterback this week as it is for almost beating Alabama.
Yeah, your thoughts, though, on Quinn Ewers. I mean, he hadn't played significant football in 2 years. Obviously, if you feel bad for him for the injury, but he looks like he is going to be that quarterback that Steve Sarkisian needs going forward.
This is why I keep using that metaphor, the buying time metaphor. It's apropos to Texas, too. Had they had a repeat this year of what happened to them last year, it would be for naught. So they lose to Oklahoma last year, and then they lose about 5 or 6 more games because they never get their team back. Sark admitted that after the season. Well, this was the test. They lost to Alabama in similar fashion, lower scoring game, but they lose a heartbreaker, and they lose their quarterback for a little while. They were down 17-7 Saturday to UTSA. And unlike last year, they answered the bell, they got up off the mat, and they ended up winning, they ended up covering. So if you look at the final score, you think, oh, ho-hum, Texas took care of business. Well, it wasn't that easy. And so now they're going to go to Texas Tech this week. They're a 4-point favorite. It's going to be another crawl over broken glass to get the win kind of game. If they can survive these and buy themselves time to get Quinn Ewers back, then that Oklahoma game could be good enough to where I got to go out there in the morning to watch that one before I come back to Tuscaloosa to watch that Bama A&M game. So I think that it's going to be a really interesting kind of 3-week stretch here because there are going to be major potential conference championship ramifications and maybe even playoff ramifications for all I know on whether they're able to tread water. I don't care if they win by 1 or 100, but they need to tread water until he gets back.
One final thought from you. You are the road show, the Josh Pate road show, which is outstanding. You will be headed to Knoxville for Tennessee and Florida. Tennessee has lost 16-17 against the Gators, but this is a golden opportunity for Josh Heupel. They're coming in on fire, and the Gators are struggling right now, Josh.
Yeah, they are, and they're favored by 10 points, too. So you're talking about those recent series trends, and you wouldn't know it by looking at the point spread. I, like you guys, have watched Anthony Richardson for 2 weeks now really struggle. And I've listened to him after games. And the old Florida quarterback down there keeps saying all the right things. I got to do better, I got to be better, et cetera, et cetera. And he does. He's right about that. Here's the problem. They were playing a Kentucky team 2 weeks ago that would hang around while you were inept offensively. Now, you lost to them, but you were still in the game because they scored in the 20s. And they were playing a USF team last week that was going to hang around and eventually give you time to beat them. They're not playing that kind of team this week. Tennessee will run away from you and hide if you give them time. And so the other thing about it is this is the first time we're going to see Florida and Billy Napier out on the road. And I don't know how many of your listeners are college age versus seasoned citizens, as I like to call them. The seasoned amongst us remember when this was one of the preeminent rivalries in the SEC and in the country. The college crowd has no clue what we're talking about. And the college crowd's about to see a little taste Saturday of what this rivalry once was. And what it once was must-see. It's kind of like when you talk to a college kid about FSU Miami, and they have no concept of what you mean when you say must-see for FSU Miami. Well, Florida-Tennessee was must-see for a long time. I'm glad that you have rankings next to both of these teams, because that means something for the TV side. But they are going to create an incredible atmosphere there in Neyland Saturday. And, guys, if they win that game, if Tennessee wins, they're undefeated still, and they've got a game against LSU after that. And then I think you know who comes to town the week after.
It could be crazy with Alabama coming to Knoxville in a few weeks. The Vols lost 15 in a row in that series, but they're very hungry for a win. Well, we look forward to your coverage. We always look forward to your show. And let everybody know how to connect with you, Josh. Great job. I know your schedule's so busy now with these road shows and the access they give you, but you do an amazing job, and we always appreciate your time.
I appreciate it as always, guys. Always means a lot.
All right, thanks. Josh Pate with us. And, Tennessee, I think is game day in Knoxville this week.
Yeah, they're going to be in
Knoxville.
Yeah.
They missed out because Duke and Kansas, by the way, are still undefeated. Yeah. And I don't think game day has ever been to Duke or had Kansas on there.
Duke's starting quarterback is an elite athlete, Riley Leonard from Fairhope, Alabama. Great multi-sport athlete. I saw that young man play basketball. He's an outstanding quarterback. Mike Elko's doing a great job. He got away from dirt next so he could save himself and got out of the Texas ATM before it imploded. But again, we appreciate Josh at Late Kick Josh, and don't forget his show. He's the host of Late Kick Live plus the Late Kick podcast, and they are live on Sunday, Tuesdays, Thursdays at 7 Central, 8 Eastern, and his road show is tremendous. He got some reaction immediately at Penn State, Auburn, and he will be at Florida and of course Tennessee, and that's a game that the Vols have circled along with that Alabama game, Scott. A couple rivalries that they're trying to get back into.
I've been fortunate enough to be on the field for one of those Tennessee-Florida matchups.
Right.
Several years ago. Steve Spurrier, Phil Fulmer, both were still coaching. It was in Knoxville, and I mean, it was great. It was a fun environment, a great environment, and that was when that rivalry was back and forth and heated a little bit. So it was good to be a part of. Tennessee is playing awfully well. They did what they were supposed to do against Akron, coming off that big win against Pittsburgh. No letdown there. We haven't seen that so far, but the competition, the Pitt competition was good. It was on the road, but Florida does have some athletes. While they're growing into Billy Napier's system, they're growing into everything. Florida does have some SEC athletes on it, but if Tennessee plays the way they have been and stay with what's been working, keeping that defense off the field, staying on the field offensively, converting third downs, it's going to be a long day for the Florida Gators in Neyland Stadium, I think.
It could very well be. I mean, certainly Florida's going to have to play clean. You're going to have to see a much better effort out of Anthony Richardson. You're going to have to see the Gators' defense show up against the run, also create turnovers and disruption. But I just think right now when you see how Tennessee's playing with Hendon Hooker, when you see the way their defense has improved, I still think it's got some issues.
Right.
But I just think right now, in the way these two teams are playing, I don't, see a way right now for Tennessee, unless they're sloppy, to not win the game by double digits. I just think they're that much better than Florida right now. And it's sort of like the situation at Vanderbilt. They made the quarterback change. Now, Mike Wright did get a little banged up, but A.J. Swan had been practicing really well. Wright had a lot of turnover issues against – it sounded similar to Anthony Richardson against Wake Forest, and Vanderbilt loses a one-sided game. And Clark Lee's like, look, we got to give this other kid a chance to play and see what he can do. He did a great job rallying them from 2 touchdowns down against Northern Illinois. When Jack Miller's healthy, is he going to get the same shot for Florida? Because, again, Richardson has just not been good.
Well, in the NCAA rankings right now, when defensively, third down percentage, there are 3 SEC teams inside the top 9 right now. Kentucky is number 4 in the country in getting off the field on third down, holding their opponents to just 17% conversion rate right now. Now, albeit Kentucky has faced Florida, so you throw that in there. Alabama is 8th in the country in third down, getting that defense off the field on third down, holding their opponents to just 21% conversion. Drew, 9th on that list is Tennessee at 22%. The Vols right now are limiting their opponents to just 22% of conversion on third downs. That is why Tennessee's having that success too, because that defense is getting off the field. The offense is able to do what they need to do. All right, what do we need to do? We need to get a break in because John Talkin will weigh in on Brian Harson's future.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Got a record 72 in Holiday Drive. Sounds like it's on holiday, but it may be slowing traffic down on 72 just a bit. Everything else looks good this morning. I don't see any other snags. You be careful. You're definitely going to be in a heavy traffic load. Officers, construction workers, and first responders put their lives on the line every time they step on the roadway. Why not make it safer for them? Move over. It's the law. Captain Nick in the 72 and Jeff Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
The Braves are out to defend their world title, and it all starts now as the push to the playoffs heats up in Atlanta.
Next pitch to Riley. Swung on, hammered to deep center. Home run! There's a liner out towards center field. It will lay down. Base hit. Here comes Ronald. Braves win it. High fly ball. Forget about it. It's another home run for Acuna.
What's better than Valley Equipment Rental? 2 Valley Equipment Rentals, and that's just what we have now. The original on the South Memorial Parkway between Drake and Airport Road, and their second location on North Memorial Parkway just north of Winchester Road. Valley Equipment is locally owned and has more skid steers, excavators, and lifts than anyone in the area, plus all the small tools that you need to get the job done like a pro. And if you are a pro, you need to check out the new North location now because Valley Equipment has what you need. Learn more at valleyequipmentrents.com.
At Mr. Sparky, we're America's on-time electrician. Flickering lights and hot switches can be annoying, but they can also signal a major problem, or worse, an electrical emergency. So play it safe and leave it to the experts at Mr. Sparky. Trust our team of professional, clean, and friendly electricians. We'll get it done right and get it done safely.
You don't have to put up with any malarkey. Call 888-8-SPARKY.
Independently owned and operated, licensed in the respective state or county.
Chapman Commercial Realty, your source for Alabama commercial real estate. Chapman Commercial Realty has the experience and expertise you're looking for when making commercial real estate decisions. If it's office space, retail space, investment property, or project development, Chapman Commercial Realty is your answer. Call Bill Chapman today at 256-656-8413. That's 256-656-8413. Or find them online at chapmancommercialrealty.com.
Here's something to get your tailgating in gear this football season. Brooks & Collier have the perfect selection of outdoor furniture for your dream backyard and the biggest selection of grills from Big Green Egg, Traeger, Blaze, Memphis, and Montalpi. Football season is grilling season. Lucy and Ivy, they're just waiting on something to fall off the grill. And remember, you could qualify for 12 months deferred interest with Synchrony Bank. Brooks & Collier, 813 Meridian Street and at brooksandcollier.com.
When I chose a garage door company, I did my homework. I needed Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. They have a 5-star Google rating. I checked their reviews and liked what their customers had to say. Precision Overhead Garage Door has lifetime warranty packages. Same-day service if I call before 2 p.m. If they can't make it the same day, my service call fee the next day is waived. They did a 25-point safety inspection on the door and operator. Now that's peace of mind. Residential, commercial, and gate services. Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. Call 256-400-4500.
This is Paul Feinbaum. Listen to me coming up today at 2. Now back to Talking Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Ball 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond with you. And coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to get John Talkin here in just a second. And it's been an interesting show because we've kind of covered a little bit of everything so far. We've covered that Auburn disappointing loss to Penn State, Alabama's win as expected against ULM, Herm Edwards getting fired. There's just been a lot of stuff, a lot of good college football news and notes, but really in our state, the biggest conversation as you go through the week this week is, what is Brian Harson's future looking like now at Auburn, coming off a disappointing loss? We said last week, Drew, if this game was close, okay. If Auburn was somehow able to get a win, that would be fantastic. But they could not go in and have a performance like they had against Saturday, because that is when the conversation is going to – the pendulum was swinging towards Brian Harsin being there a little bit. The future was looking good. It was just on that side of the swing where it could be good. But that performance brought that pendulum back to the side where it's now, instead of being a molehill to get over, this is like Mount Everest that he's having to climb now.
Yeah, it just doesn't look good. And our next guest is going to talk about that. He's the senior sports editor and SEC insider for AL.com. He's got one of the hottest selling books in the United States. It's been selling out all over the state of Alabama, The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban. And it's not even been out a month yet. I mean, it's been doing outstanding, doing amazing. You can order it on Amazon.com. The last I had heard, it was selling out all over bookstores all over the state of Alabama. But he's done a great job, and I know he's excited. His Maryland Terrapins are also 3-0. But he's going to join us now on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline to talk about the future of Brian Harsin. He had a very interesting column on NL.com about the fallout from this 41-12 Penn State win, and it's John Talty. John, welcome back to Huntsville. You're with Drew and Scott. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to talk to you guys again this morning.
No doubt, and again, congrats on the book, doing outstanding. But Brian Harsin, this has been an interesting saga in 2 years for Auburn football. Very rough first year, really the second half of that season, ending on the 5-game losing streak. He did a lot of public speaking, a lot of PR in the offseason. Made the changes he wanted to his coaching staff, got his 2 coordinators from Boise State in place, and Jeff Smeding and Eric Kiesau. But they were underwhelming against San Jose. I won't say anything about the Mercer game, but San Jose, there were some disturbing things you saw. They were trailing at halftime. And then I'll just say it was just a totally deflating performance, John, on Saturday in front of what was an electric crowd in the first half, but just a very poor performance in all 3 phases for Auburn on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be writing a leadership book about Brian Harsin anytime soon. What we've seen is not going to get it done. And, I think there's a couple things in play here. One, to be fair to Brian Harsin, I don't think it's all his fault. Obviously, with the well-publicized kind of coup, essentially, to get rid of him last year, that certainly created issues on the recruiting trail, and I think it created a lot of drama around this program. But, at the end of the day, they brought him in to try to, fare better than Gus Malzahn did. They got tired of Gus. Gus had his ups and his downs, but, what we have not seen are the results even close to the level of what Gus did at Auburn. And I think before the season, by far the number one thing was Brian Harsin has to figure out the quarterback position, because you could tell that was what was going to have to make this team go. He had to figure out the right guy, brought in multiple transfers, and I don't know what Dr. Calzada's issue is. He hasn't been able to get into a game. I guess he's just really not good, but the fact that the quarterback play is as bad as it's been is certainly an indictment on Harsin, and is going to be one of the reasons why he probably ultimately is fired, is that their offense has just looked so poor, all season so far. We're only 3 games in.
Yeah. Are you surprised that they did not, during the offseason, maybe or try to pursue the transfer portal any harder?
I mean, they did, but here's the thing. I mean, again, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, in that, that was such an steady situation. You know,
Right.
he gets rid of
It's
Mike
hard.
Bobo. They bring in that new offensive coordinator. He lasts less than a month. He's gone. You know, like if you're a good transfer, you're probably not. You probably were not trying to go to Auburn this offseason. So again, that's probably half on Harsin, half on the situation. But yeah, I mean that certainly created problems. I mean, Robbie Ashford has been okay as a situational quarterback. I don't think he's good enough to be the guy. TJ Finley, we knew what we saw last year from him. I don't know if people are expecting some major jump in the offseason, but based on what we've seen so far, that hasn't happened. And you know, people thought Calzada was going to be the guy after, you know, some of what he did at A&M last year, and you know, he's been hurt, and you know, he's been running third string. I mean, that to me is a pretty surprising, but I guess speaks to just how big of a mess it is right now.
Yeah, and that's something you don't even remember now. It just seems like a year ago, but that Austin Davis did take the OC's job from the Seahawks and only stayed a few weeks and then leaves. I think that was another bad sign for Brian Harsin. And this offense has just not performed like we thought it would. The running game, Tank Bigsby, he wasn't as big a part of the game plan as I would have thought. I thought the play calling was a little suspect against Penn State. And we were talking earlier in the show, John, too. We talked to Josh Pate, who was on the field in Auburn and Jordan-Hare, and he just said it was alarming to look at the two teams physically, and that Auburn just doesn't look like they match up well with a good Power 5 program right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not the talent that you need, and I think ultimately one of the reasons why Brian Harsin is going to get fired sooner than later is that there's no reason to believe that's going to change moving forward. You know, they have the worst ranked recruiting class in the SEC right now, and so a combination of, you know, Gus not exactly leaving the cupboard full for them, and then Harson's just not doing a good enough job recruiting. And again, you know, if with the way that the game is now, if Harsin and his staff did a better job, they could have probably hit the transfer portal pretty hard and added a bunch of impact players. They tried to do that. It didn't really work. They weren't able to successfully convince guys, and you can argue maybe there was some NIL impact there as well. But this team is just not very good. I mean, there's a reason why it was picked the bottom half of the SEC West. And, you know, you look at their schedule ahead, I think it's one of the most difficult schedules in the country. And, I mean, they could have 6-7 losses by the end of the year. I mean, this is just not a very good team from what we're seeing right now. And I think they've been very lucky in the past that they had incredible defenses led by Kevin Steele that bailed them out of some bad situations. That defense this year does not look as good as it's been in the past. And so when you talk about the offensive problem and you don't have that really strong defense to kind of save you out of those situations, you know, you're in for some bad games moving forward. And, you know, if they lose this week to Missouri, the pressure is going to crank up to an extreme level for Brian Harsin and his staff.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously the heat is on, and you kind of alluded to it there. This Missouri game becomes really extremely huge then for his future. Is it a game where Auburn has to come out and dominate, or is it a game where if Auburn wins by 1 point, that gives him a little bit more time?
I mean, nobody's going to be happy about a 1-point win over Missouri, but I mean, I think at this point, Brian Harsin just needs to start stacking some wins. You know, he can worry about the style points later. I think he just needs to start winning some games because that loss to Penn State was so deflating. So, I mean, it was one of the sloppiest, you know, really one of the more embarrassing performances I've seen from Auburn in a while. I mean, they just got pretty much dominated in the second half, and it looks like they gave up in some regards. So Missouri is a team that is also desperate. We don't really talk about it in part because of Missouri, but I think Drinkwitz is going to start being on the hot seat himself a bit. You know, he really has not, as funny as Drinkwitz is, and as good as he is at dropping a zinger or two, the way Lane Kiffin is, like, he really does not have the results there. There's a newer AD in place. Drinkwitz, you know, his pressure's not at the same level as Harsin, but it could be if they don't start winning some games too. And so that's going to be an interesting game because I think both coaches could really use a win right now.
No question about it. I mean, I know Drinkwitz is recruited well, but he's had 3 defensive coordinators in 3 years, and they have the deflating loss on the road to K-State a couple weeks ago, and then K-State loses to Tulane. So, and they did not look good in the 34-17 win against Abilene Christian. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup. And John, I thought in your column it was interesting that you said you gave a candidate who would be of high interest, you think, to Auburn, and who was interested in the job a couple of years ago, and he is considered the transfer portal king, and that's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean, so Kiffin, when they ended up hiring Brian Harsin, Lane Kiffin was very interested in that job. He was trying to get in the mix on that job, and they weren't interested in him. Now, since that happened, there's been a number of changes, right? So Auburn now has a new president. They'll soon to have, either they'll promote the interim to full-time or they'll hire a new AD. So there's some different leaders in place this time. And on the flip side, Kiffin has something pretty good going at Ole Miss. His interest in Auburn could be a little bit different this go around, but he was definitely interested in the job last time, and he, to me, just fits a lot of what I think Auburn needs right now. They need somebody who's willing to go toe-to-toe with Nick Saban. They obviously compare themselves a lot to Alabama. Lane Kiffin does that himself already, so I think he would fit into the mindset of that fan base. I think he would do a good job. We know he can hit the transfer portal well, like you talked about. We know he can have an exciting offense, which we know Auburn fans like. So I think he would fit a lot. Now, there will be other names mentioned. Hugh Freeze is going to be a name that will get mentioned a lot as well. He was a non-starter last time because of his well-documented issues. We'll see if he can get more traction this time around, as I mentioned, with that new administration in place. But they're going to, I think if they ultimately get rid of Brian Harsin this year, they're going to go for more of a splashy hire. And a guy who I think understands the SEC in a way that clearly Brian Harsin did not.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because Brian Harsin just did not have the connections to the Southeastern Conference. And then just your overall impressions of the SEC so far, John. It looks like Georgia is the best team in the league, if not the country. Alabama has been good but not great. And we've also got a big game coming up with Tennessee and Florida. Florida very lucky to escape against South Florida, but they have had Tennessee's number. But if Tennessee is ever going to get them, it would seem that the stars are kind of aligning for Josh Heupel right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting weekend. Like you said, I think I have it as Georgia 1, a bit of a gap, Alabama 2, and then a bit of a gap. And so you've got a couple interesting games. You got Florida, Tennessee, like you mentioned. I've been impressed by Tennessee. Florida had that huge win over Utah, which was awesome. Clearly ahead of schedule for Billy Napier down there, who I have a ton of respect for. But this Florida team in general is not great. I think we've seen that in some of the games since then, that this is a team, like we knew heading into the preseason, it has flaws. It's not great. They might get 8 wins or so, but it's going to be a struggle. I think we're starting to see more of that the last couple of games. Tennessee, I think, could certainly challenge Kentucky for the second-best team in the SEC East. And then in the West, Arkansas A&M is really interesting to me because Arkansas has kind of been that hot team. They were, I think, kind of rising to that number 2 team in the SEC West. Struggled against Missouri State this past weekend. Returned to Bobby Petrino. There was a lot there. Bobby Petrino had his team up on Arkansas for a good chunk of that game. That was a little concerning, but there was a lot going on there. And then A&M bounced back. Big win over Miami. That was a game they had to have after losing to App State. And so, Arkansas A&M, I think that's going to be a really interesting game. I like Arkansas in that game, but I think it's going to be a physical game, and I think that will, I think certainly whoever wins that one will be the clear leading number 2 in the SEC West.
And final thought from you, John. I know you made an interesting comment because I know you went down to see Billy Napier at Louisiana and you studied his program. Is it just an issue? I think it's an issue right now of not having enough talent at Florida. I know they had the great win against Utah, but Richardson is really struggling from the neck up. The Gators were struggling in recruiting, almost like, not to the extent of Brian Harsin, but in that realm, in that vicinity with Dan Mullen.
Yeah, I think Billy just needs to get some guys in there. I have a lot of respect for Billy. I think he's a great coach. I really liked that hire. I thought it made a lot of sense. I think what he's doing down there makes a lot of sense. It's very similar to what he has seen at Alabama. They've obviously hired massive internal staff. He's focusing on recruiting and personnel, and so it'll take, I think, a year or two to get the guys that he needs in that program to compete at the highest levels. But that's also why when you steal a game like Utah, there's so much value in that. Not only for recruiting momentum, but it shows, okay, like, we don't have it fully figured out yet, but like, I could show that I can beat a big team based on really just my coaching abilities and less so on the talent. Not to keep coming back to Brian Harsin, but Brian Harsin has never had that win. He had a shot at Penn State last year, didn't make it happen. There were multiple times where he probably should have had that big win, never got it, and now you're kind of looking at it, well, he's not a good recruiter, and he's not winning the big games. What are we paying him for? So we know Nature's going to get it done on the recruiting trail, and I think he's already shown at Louisiana that he is a very good coach.
Well, great stuff, John. Let everybody know how to connect with your work and also where they can get your book, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You can follow me on Twitter at JSalty, and anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It's The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban, How Alabama's Coach Became the Greatest Ever. Available everywhere, and appreciate all the kind words you had about the book, too. It's been quite a blessing so far to see how well it's done, and excited that people seem to enjoy it.
Yes, sir. Thanks Congratulations. John. Appreciate it, John.
Appreciate it.
Let's get that final break in. When we come back, hey, we've got to do a Team of the Week. Supposed to do it at 8 o'clock. We didn't get to it. We'll do it next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Got a wreck old railroad bed in Yarborough. It's reported as an injury type. Got one westbound on 565 near Research Park. Not much to it. 3 vehicles involved, but they pulled it off to the side of the road. 72 and Holiday should be just about wrapped up. It hasn't been a major problem. Need help finding admin, accounting, or medical staff? Snelling can help. Snelling's where Huntsville's best companies hire talent. 256-382-4000. Captain Nick in the 72 and Jeff Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
Your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for their 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers their members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite leagues, including college football and the NFL. They've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest European slots, and their live dealers are waiting for you at the tables. Sign up at BetUS.com and use the promo code WZZN. That's BetUS.com and the promo code WZZN.
If you're ready to lower your utility bills, it's time to call Eagle Insulation. Eagle can handle it all. Attic re-insulation, insulation removal, wall insulation, and new construction insulation, commercial and residential. Our primary goal is to save you money, and lots of it. Typical clients realize their return on investment within 3 to 6 months. That means the re-insulation actually pays for itself and then some. See if we can help you. Contact Eagle Insulation today, 256-755-1556, or log on insulatewitheagle.com. When you call most roofing companies, all you'll hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming. At Fleming Roofing and Restoration, we're focused on your needs, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement. Folks around here trusted Fleming since 1965 for all their residential and commercial roofing needs. And as the area's storm damage experts, Fleming knows all the ins and outs of the insurance claims process. Log on FlemingHSV.com to schedule your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Forgiveness. Wow, what a word. What a gift. All of us have done things in our lives that we regret. All of us have done things that are disobedient. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Thank God for his forgiveness. Thank God that he separates our sins as far as the east is from the west and remembers them no more. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of Cross Point Church, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison. Check us out at cpcfamily.org.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121.
you know that your car or truck or SUV may be worth up to 30 or 40% more than it was last year? It's true. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford, and now is the perfect time to trade in and trade up to a gold certified or blue certified pre-owned car, truck, SUV, or crossover. While our new vehicle inventory continues to build back, our Ford Blue Advantage certified pre-owned vehicles are nearing 100 models to choose from, and a good variety too. Woody Anderson Ford Gold certified vehicles are 6 years or younger with less than 80,000 miles and have passed 172-point inspection by factory certified technicians. They have a 14-day, 1,000-mile money-back guarantee, a great comprehensive limited warranty, 24-hour roadside assistance, and go home with full tank of gas and a fresh oil change. Get nearly a new ride and none of the worries. Woody Anderson Ford, Jordan at Sparkman. Hope to see you soon.
Your home of the Alabama Crimson Tide is 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Touchdown, Alabama! No look pass inside, but he got to go to play.
Your home of the Alabama Crimson Tide is 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Each week, they lace it up. Each week, we'll present our Team of the Week.
Get it in here! I got one thing to say!
So it's time for the Bryant Bank Team of the Week presentation.
Indeed, it is time for the 97.7 ESPN The Zone Team of the Week presentation. And last week, it was a big game. It was built up as a big game. Big region standing implications on the line between Randolph and Westminster Christian Academy. The Randolph Raiders go on the road after enjoying the fine comforts of home for 3 weeks, and they get the job done. So, therefore, they are our 97.7 ESPN The Zone Bryant Bank Team of the Week.
Yes, they are. The Randolph Raiders under Coach David Lloyd, Austin Coletti, and I were on the call. It was a 53-20 win. They fell behind 7-0 in the first two plays as Brandon Mush broke a 77-yard touchdown run, but then 47 consecutive points from the Randolph Raiders. Unbelievable performance by Grayson Davenport, second ever in the AHSAA's long history. He catches 15 passes for 323 yards, 4 touchdowns for the senior. An unbelievable game. His last 2 weeks have been unbelievable. He had 10 for 212, I believe, in 3 TDs in the week before as Randolph won against North Jackson. So he's 52-14. He's been unbelievable. Andrew Hunter, 22 of 30, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, 71 yards on the ground. Nick Strong, 7 rushes, 120, 4 touchdowns. Just an all-around great performance. Connor Goodson as well with his 3rd interception. Just a tremendous performance by Randolph in all 3 phases, and they beat Louis LeBlanc's Westminster Christian Academy, Wildcats, who I think still have a great chance to reach the playoffs in 4A Region 8. But because of their 4-game winning streak and this unbelievable performance on the road in front of a homecoming crowd, great environment over at Westminster, because of that performance and the way they're playing, the Randolph Raiders are our Bryant Bank 97.7 The Zone Team of the Week.
So there you have it there. 256-576-4977. That's the number. If you want to join the program, you have just a couple minutes to do so if you would like to get in. We've kind of gone through a little bit. By the way, in case you are wondering, Kansas, what did I see here? Oh, I did think of you on Saturday, watching College Game Day briefly, and the kid that won. So App State, by the way, the whole thing is the president of App State, Appalachian State, whoever had the best sign on College Game Day, they were going to give that student free tuition for a year, and they pulled 3 students actually out and gave them all free tuition for a year. But the guy that won, one of the guys that won, the sign that was created says the only ATM that lets you withdraw $1.5 million, and it had the Texas A&M logo up there. So I did think of you on Saturday when I saw that sign. I was like, Dirt
Neck won him some tuition, man. $1.5 million. So there you go. That's what they got to go and physically dominate Texas A&M. In other words, 3 NIL payments to players is what they got to make that trip up there.
Yeah. So and did you?
Or maybe half of it, considering Evan Stewart what he allegedly got.
Yeah. The game day, I did chuckle at this because my wife asked me. She's like, "Well, who was the guest picker?" And I said, "Luke Combs was."
Oh yeah, the singer. Yeah.
And Luke Combs, the very first thing that he said was, "I'd like to thank Jimbo Fisher for the $1.5 million donation to our school."
So Luke Combs, I take it, is a graduate of Appalachian.
Yes, he's a graduate of Appalachian State.
Yeah.
So there you
Education.
go. I did laugh this weekend.
Somebody should have asked Luke, "Are you going to match said donation and help the NIL for Appalachian, even though you guys are already better than Texas A&M?"
Shane Sean's with us on line one. Good morning, Shane Sean.
Everybody knows that I'm an Alabama fan, and I really don't care about Auburn, but all I want to say is this. The problems they're having right now is nobody's fault but Auburn. He couldn't recruit last year. He couldn't get nobody to commit to him out of the portal because they was trying to fire and make up stuff about him. So nobody wanted to come play for him. So they just need to lay off of him, leave him alone, give him this year and next year, leave him alone, and let him try to build a team. Nobody's fault but Auburn's and Yellowwood.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think that they're gonna have a short leash, and Yellowwood is probably going to get his way. Brian Harsin, unless they turn it around quickly, they certainly need to win these next two home games.
They're ruining the man's life and career. Oh, bullcrap, folks.
I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be a developing situation at Auburn for sure. Developing situation at Auburn for sure, and we'll just have to see how it unfolds. But Shane Sean is right. A lot of this mess that was created down there was created by Auburn, self-inflicted stuff. Yeah. Brian Harsin is a great guy. What he went through, he didn't deserve to go through, but the play on the field is reflecting, though, maybe he is in over his head a little bit as far as coaching in the SEC.
McCurry Motors is your car and van rental headquarters. You can rent the vehicle